are going to have two elections fairly close together. One for the state of Western Australia and one for the Commonwealth. Well, what I've got here is the Commonwealth Constitution Act 1900 UK, when it was proclaimed and gazetted on the 9th of July 1900, and it was proclaimed and gazetted into the Commonwealth on the 1st of January 1901. So we'll just put that there for a minute. Then we have Constitution Act of Western Australia, the government's version, with 32 sections missing, and they're all here. They've been repealed, and it says all of that. So anybody who says they haven't been repealed or they can't find, hasn't looked, and is making false statements. And I can vouch for that. I have it here. And if that particular person takes the time to contact me, he'll find out that the whole lot is here. When they pulled out all the sections, when they played with it for 32 sections and messed with the whole act. Then we have the correct letters patent state constitution for the state of Western Australia, put in place on the 29th of October 1900 by Queen Victoria. And she put that in place. She did not put this one with 32 sections missing in place. That was put in unlawfully by John Forrest. How do we know that? Because it says so. The only way it can be put in is in this form, not in this. In its original form is this one. I'm just clarifying this because I'm going to make a statement that nice little political parties won't particularly like. This is a letters patent for the office of governor, who says clearly that the governor is the highest authority in the state and must be obeyed. Not when you feel like it, must be obeyed. Well, we have to have a lawful governor. In Western Australia we don't have that. And the Constitution Act with 32 sections missing doesn't exist. So what we should have is this, which would establish the state. Now, let's clarify something else. This Constitution here creates the states under the provisions of 107, 108 and 109 of the Constitution Act, this one, Imperial Law, the enabling act which enables us to have it. Is that correct? Yes, 100% correct. I have it all. This was made letters patent the same time as the state ones. 29th of October 1900, the same time as the office of governor. Now, what has taken place is the continual, persistent and totally unlawful modification to our whole system. Twiggy's granddad forgot the 32 important bits. Alright, we'll leave that humour till later. Now, what we're dealing with is a set of so-called laws, which are not law at all. They were made by a purported federal parliament calling itself the Australian government, headed by Anthony Albanese, according to him, along with Penny got it wrong as usual. And what they really want us to believe is they got all these authorities. They have none. Because Western Australia never put its lawful constitution in place at Federation, Western Australia was created under the Commonwealth Constitution Act. We know that. It wasn't able to operate because it had an unlawful state constitution. It's an unlawful one. You can't operate on it. So where's your authority for your parliament? In the state constitution. How do we know that? I'll come back to that. Then in August 1902, New South Wales removed its constitution. Fact. And replaced it with another one. It no longer complied with 106 of the Constitution. Then Queensland removed its upper house. Then South Australia removed its constitution, replaced it. Tasmania did the same. And 1975, Victoria did the same. So there were no state constitutions to allow any parliaments to exist. Did the federal parliament know it? Yes, they did. They admitted on documents, internal documents, which I read and gave to a friend who still has them. And they state clearly what I'm talking about. There was no authority for the 1988 referendum or Constitutional Convention. We didn't have a referendum, sorry, it was a Constitutional Convention. This little book was the result of it. And it says, annotated Constitution of the Australian Commonwealth, quick and guaranteed revised edition, and it's authorised. Who by? Political parties who had no authority to make it. No authority to make it. You understand that? Now, the reason I brought up Albanese and Company, also bring up Dodgy Roger, Mark McGowan and all the rest of the fleas behind him, before him, in this state, everything they've done, but Anne Toomey classes herself as an expert in the Constitution. She says these two books, just done things in my way all the time, these two books are exactly the same. Well, anyone can see there's a difference in thickness because there's few pages missing out of the green one. They're not the same. The text is not the same. So just suggesting they are, for Anne Toomey's sake. This one, page 286, says clearly, if, and that's O'Connor speaking, one of the people who wrote the Constitution, if it was asked of a politician what was the highest authority in the state, he'd say the state constitution. That leads near the truth, but it doesn't reach it, because the supreme, absolute and uncontrollable authority remains with the people. That is a fact of law. Like it or not. You go to page 346, it says, not all enactments of the Parliament are valid. Only those made pursuant to, in accordance with and under the authority granted by the Constitution, and those laws only are binding on the courts, judges and the people. All other laws are void. Is that clear? Yes, it has to be made pursuant to the Constitution or it doesn't exist. So there goes Anne Toomey's version of they have plenary power to pass whatever laws they want whenever they like, and the Australia Act, they could do that without a referendum. Nonsense. It's all lies. Lies. That's what it all is. Now, you go to page 676. It says the Constitution is above both houses of Parliament. Above it. So if the Constitution is above it, and the Parliament selects a Prime Minister, even though he's not in the Constitution at all, not in there, you've got to turn around and think, what the heck's going wrong with this country? Because suddenly Anne Toomey says the Parliament is supreme, the Parliament is above, the Prime Minister is above the High Court, he has plenary power, he can go and sign overseas agreements, all of which the High Court denies, but we really don't have to prove that. Then you go to the bottom of the page, 676, it says the Parliament is not supreme. So there it goes, 286 as the people are. So that's okay. We are, the Parliament's not. But the Parliament is subject to the law, same as the Parliament is subject to the Constitution, which is how it works. Now, with your elections, you've got an even bigger problem. But we haven't finished yet, because you go to page 791 that says neither the federal nor the state parliament are sovereign bodies. They're simply legislatures with limited authority. If they attempt to pass a law in excess of that authority, the law is a nullity and affords no obedience. None. It's invalid. Automatically invalid. You can't change that. And yet you do. You have somebody like Anne Toomey who sprouts government rhetoric, which is nonsense. It's all false information. And then you have a parliament that uses an experimental vaccine on all the people in this country in direct contravention of the law, which means you have a huge big problem, because that's an act of terrorism. It's an act of terrorism. No. And hate speeches. Oh, there's plenty of hate speeches coming from politicians about that political party, that one, these people, those people. And then you send money to Hamas. You send money to fight Russia, against Russia. Our money. What does our Constitution say? All money in excess of the federal government's debts must be returned to the states in relation to head of population. That's clear. And it's there. I've told you before, but you ignore it. You try to ignore the fact that they're ripping off the people all the time. They collect 7.5% tax for our pension, but our Constitution says you've got to pay it anyway. You've got to pay it. And now you've got a real big problem. Because all these politicians that are vying for Parliament, both at state and federal level, they're lying to you. Not one of them can sit if they're put there by the political parties to stand. Simply because there is no federal Parliament until all 6 states have their constitutions back in place where they were or should have been at federation, like Western Australia should have, but it had an incorrect one. So until that happens, there's never been a lawful federal Parliament. Am I correct? Yes. Why? Because the Constitution says so. The Constitution says 106 says the state constitutions can continue subject to this constitution and altered in accordance with their constitutions. The state constitutions are all letters patent. So even if you've got, got the power to alter them or change them, it still must go to the reigning monarch to sign off because the letters patent. Has to. Commonwealth Constitution Act 1900 UK is a letters patent. So is the derivative Constitution, which we were granted permission by that Act to have. It has 9 clauses. It doesn't have one name. It has 9. I know you can spell, so I'm not going to insult you by saying you can't spell. You can spell. There's 9 clauses. They're all binding. You can't touch them. They're not statute law. They're imperial law. So you look up your Constitution. 701, 702, 703, 704. In that area, it says, even if the Colonial Laws Validity Act had never been enacted, it is beyond the authority of any colony of England to in any way alter an imperial law. So there goes your stance on Magna Carta that it's only a statute and our Australian Parliament can change it. No, they can't. That's another lie. Read your videos, go look at it. You've stated that. You've stated the 2 books, the green one and the red one, are exactly the same. They're the same book. No, they're not. It's a pack of lies. Am I calling you a liar? No. But you are spreading lies. Government, rhetoric, lies. But political parties do that. But political parties should not and can't run this country lawfully. Now, you have no federal parliament at this stage. You have no lawful state parliaments until you appoint lawful governors and they're approved from England. Is there a Queen of Australia? No. Can you have a Royal Styles and Title Act? No. Because of the constitutional constraints. Your oath must be to Queen Victoria, her heirs and successors. Queen of Australia is an heir or a successor to Queen Victoria. King of Australia isn't either. It's a nonsense dreamed up by political parties, i.e. Gough Whitlam and those fleas and Bob Hawke, because they wanted to take this country off you. So, you know, we're at the crossroads of getting rid of the idiots in this country. The idiots are sitting in our parliament. They're sitting in treason, fraud, and treachery to overturn the Constitution. But worse, they're war criminals, because they've waged war on the Crown of England by removing it. In Western Australia, using the Acts Amendment Repeals Court and Legal Practice Act, Section 8, to take all the Crown out of our law, and then with the Oath Affidavit, the Statutory Declarations Act, you remove the schedule to the state constitution that wasn't there anyway. It wasn't there. Only your bodgy one with 32 sections missing had Schedule E to that constitution with the oath, and you took it out. Aren't you good little boys? You took another section out. and everything else you've taken out. You lie, you cheat, you steal, you murder people by forcing them to have vaccines. Did you force them? Yes, you did. You cannot get a statement off anybody without it being, oh, look at that, without threats, promises or inducements being made against you. Without that. So did you force them? Yes. You wait until people are so tied up with mortgages and everything else where they have a choice. Throw their job in or get jabbed. You gave them that option. You said it was a mandate. Mandate's not law. It's just another lie from the political parties trying to get your own way. Kate Gallagher lied when she said we were given a choice and we made that choice. No, Kate, that's a lie. Disguised lie, but it is a lie. Because these people needed that job or lose everything they've ever worked for. But don't worry about that. Mark McGowan and Dodgy Roger found a good solution to that. They used an unlawful act, the Transfer of Land Act, 1893, and said we have the right to control your titles and everything else. No, you don't. No, you don't. In relation to good governance, you can keep a public record of who owns what property. But you do not own the titles. You cannot own the title, which is the only evidence we have of ownership on the land. Then you come out with a bright thing, the Crown still owns it, but you're not the Crown. You idiots are not the Crown. You're idiots, you're morons, you're traitors. You're thieves and liars. Don't like what I'm saying? Sue me in court. I've got all the documents to prove exactly what I'm saying, including the fact that I won the case in 2019 in the magistrate's court here. The magistrate said he couldn't give them orders, either in relation to the property on my land or my land, but they'd already sold the land prior to that. Did they know they were going to steal it? Yes, the documents from Landgate, which I've said, hurry up and transfer it because the dispute on ownership is before the court. And I won. And now you've got a donkey called Shane Van Stein running for Parliament as an independent. Well, he should stay as an independent because he's not the same calibre as the liars we got. He's even worse. He went round telling everybody I lost the case, and in fact there were 43 witnesses, and the transcript shows I did not lose the case at all. I won it. The magistrate abandoned the court. I won it. I won it. They never proved that I owed them any money. I won it. They never proved they had authority to remove my property off my land. I won it. You can tell all the lies you want, but it goes back to one thing, the truth. Where do we get justice? From truth. Because without it, there is none. You people think you're going to lie your way and say, oh no, we've decided that we have the right to take your land, take the property. United Nations, nothing to do with us. We didn't join them. We didn't sign anything. Our Constitution doesn't recognise the United Nations or any overseas agreements. None of them. Justice Kirby in the High Court said you can't do it without going to the people. And you did it. And you lied and stole off the people. Used money to buy your way into the United Nations. But see, there's a clanger for yous. Can I stop the election? I can't, but 51% people who, if they do what I tell them, can. When you go to the polling booth, do not get your name struck off. Do not do it. Number one. They cannot force you to go there and get your name struck off. I'm not telling you don't go there, I'm telling you to go there. Now, when you do a letter, you write a letter. I, myself, Wayne Kenneth of the family Glew, living man, and anyone can see that. If you can't, boo-hoo, get over yourself, attended at the polling booth. I looked at all the candidates. Not one of them complied with the requirements of Chapter 1 of the Commonwealth Constitution Act 1900 UK or the Constitution derived from it. They were not selected by the Governor, who is the highest authority, from a pool of people that we have to vote from. One person once for each House of the Parliament, both state and federal. But you can't have a federal election until the state election is used. and approved. And each state puts a lawful parliament in place. 12 members for the House for the Senate, and 28 for the House of Representatives. They don't represent you anyway. They've got an opposition there to make sure that they tell you what to do even though they're correct. Of course they're going to cut everything off. I'm reading it. The problem is, all you need to do is a letter. And that letter states, I attended. I looked. You've got to have your name and your address and the fact that you're a man or a woman. If you're something else, put that down. I don't care. That's not my problem. It's not a law anyway, nor are any of the laws made federally in this country by referendum or any other way, because there's never been a lawful federal parliament for the reasons I've said. They've never had 6 lawful states whose vote would create the first federal parliament. That's a fact. Come to see me, come pick on me, put me before the court, and I'll prove you don't even have any jurisdiction, let alone the ability to counteract what I'm saying, because I'm correct, 100% correct. Now, if you put in a letter saying, I attended, not one of those candidates was selected by the governor under Chapter 1 of the Constitution, none of them are lawful. None. So all you liars standing down there in the middle of Geraldton, in Durlacker Street, standing there in a big group, promoting Liberal, Labor, National and Greens, you're all traitors, liars and frauds. Don't like me? Put me to the court and prove it. But you don't have any courts. The courts are gathering under the sovereign. None of those clowns have ever sworn an oath of allegiance. None of them. Not one. How do you gather under the crown when you don't swear an oath of allegiance? Cullerton and Trump, don't come into what I'm saying. Please do not write that on this post at this time. Concentrate on what I'm saying. That letter is you attending, seeing there are no lawfully appointed members that you can vote for, and that's all you need, and you get it signed and dated and hand a copy to the person in charge of that polling booth that they require you to go to. Do that, and 51% do it, there is no election. It's gone. Finished. It's finished. Because you haven't voted. You can't vote lawfully for anybody for these elections. The evidence is here. I've given it to you. If the state constitutions aren't here, you can't vote for any of the people they put up because they're not lawful. If they're not using the letters patent for the office of governor, you cannot do it because you don't have a lawful governor. You've got the so-called ex-commissioner of police who became the minister in the government, a minister for vaccinations. How did you do that? By lying, cheating and stealing. The letters patent for the office of governor says the governor. So just Chapter 1 of the Constitution, the governor at state level selects 10 from the lower house, 8 from the upper. He gives them the portfolios. There is no such animal as a cabinet, unless that's where you keep your grog and drugs when you use them in the parliament, because you couldn't be that stupid being in there and dribble the crap that you're dribbling now. Wake up to the fact there is no lawful states until you put the state constitutions back in place. Every single state. You've got to put it back. Without that, the states aren't lawfully constituted. You're finished. You are finished. You can say all you like, take me to court, sue me, and I'll prove you're lying. And to me, everything I'm saying, you're repeating government rhetoric. It's all lies. Check it out before you're made a total fool of. Understand, you're not going to get away with what you're doing. Once you know that they're lies, you have a duty to the people to check it out. There is no supremacy of Parliament. There is no sovereignty of Parliament. The absolute, supreme and uncontrollable authority remains with you, the people. Who does it encompass? whereas the people of New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria, Tasmania, South Australia and Western Australia join together in one indissoluble federation. I don't care what colour you are. Whereas the people, you're all people, that's who you are. That is the truth. What I've said is the truth. If you fail and go and vote according to what they want, your vote is an act of treason against the people of this country. It's an act of treason. If you propose somebody, and you're a political party, to sit there, that's an act of treason against the people, because you can't. Only the governor can put together a pool of people. Now, when it comes to the federal election, when all the states are lawful, the governor does the same. Then each state has an election for the federal parliament. 12 senators and the number 28 in this state for House of Representatives. When they go to Canberra, the seat of government, they create, the 6 states create the first lawful parliament. We don't have one. We don't have any lawful states. Understand, they're lying to you. How are you going to get your land back? You go and look at the real estate ads, for sale. No, it's not for sale. If you don't totally own it under fee simple, which means it's alienated from the Crown, the only right to tax it, then you don't own it. Comprehend the fact they've stolen your land. Oh, we passed a law. No, you passed a statute. An unlawful statute, not backed up by the Constitution, totally unlawfully, because the Colonial Laws Validity Act says chalice real property is law in this country. Chalice real property has fee simple in it, alienates it from the Crown. I'm not interested in someone, oh, you've got to have a allodial title, you've got to have this, you've got to have that. You've got to have a title issued in fee simple, which alienates your land from the Crown. You can't tax it. 1904 case, 1923 case, where New South Wales took the Commonwealth to court to be able to tax the land. The court said no. Fiji versus the Northern Territory said native title doesn't alienate the land, doesn't affect it. It's not an attack on native people. They're not Aboriginal, they're native or indigenous. They were born here. We were all born here too. Since all the babies born in this country grew up, we're all born here. I'm 7th generation Australian. I'm native. I'm indigenous to this country. Unless you want to chop me up in bits and send me all over the world, and some of you would like to, but it's not going to work. You liars, you can call yourself a corporation, a company or everything else. And Toomey says, oh, the corporation, the Commonwealth of Australia is not a corporation because they didn't issue any shares in Australia, but they did issue them in America, along with debentures and all the other documents they did. And look at it, it's all there. When you go on the US Securities Exchange Commission, it's all there. So Anne Toomey, you either never read it, you're pushing government rhetoric, or you're lying. One of the three. It's simple as that. They are trading companies under the Fair Work Australia Act. And they're not there for GST because Section 51, subsection 2 of the Constitution says any law in relation to tax shall deal with one subject of tax only, goods and services. It's unlawful. It's not maybe, could be, open to interpretation. The only interpretation is you've got 2 subjects of tax in a taxing law other than excise and duties. Other than that, it says, the whole Act says that. Read it, educate yourself and understand the fact GST is unlawful. Where's the majority of the money going? To the Vatican. Who doesn't pay it? The companies. Who owns them? Hooked up through the Vatican as well. Where's all the taxes that Howard said would go when we got the GST? They're all there and they're multiplied. All the states are saying, look, we've sold off the public utilities, the SEC, the Water Corporation, everything else. What did we benefit? Nothing. What was our benefit? Increased costs. Increased costs. You've got to pay for a water pipe that you own, goes past your block, but you don't want to use. Why do you have to pay for something you don't want or need? Why do you? What compels you to put water on your property if you got a rain and you store it in rain tanks? Oh, look, some idiot passed a law in some states saying you couldn't have a rainwater tank. If you did, you had to pay tax to the council. Why? If you can tax it, means you own it. So you get the water out of that tank, take it back out through the hole in the thing, on the roof, and back up in the sky, because we don't want it. If you own it, we don't want it. If it falls on our property, grows double G's and prickles and fireweed and everything else, take it off. Don't allow it to fall on there, because if it does, you're responsible for that damage. The costs of removing it. Is that stupid? Stupid for you to think it, but not stupid as a fact. You cannot own something and not have control over it, not have responsibility for it. You don't have any authority over our land. If you did, Section 51, subsection 38, you know, the little section that says that with the control of the parliaments of the state, the Commonwealth can exercise authority at its federation, but didn't have any. Wickham-Garren says it didn't. They were part writers of this book. From the Hansard, the public record of all the constitutional conventions that put this book together and put the Commonwealth Constitution Act 1900 UK, the draft copy, to go to England to come back, and it come back. We are not a constitutional monarchy. We are not a parliamentary anything. We, under Clause 8, read Clause 8, it says, when the colonies become states, the Boundaries Act no longer applies. However, when the Commonwealth is established, it's established as a self-governing colony of England, and then that act applies. So where's the boundary? 12 nautical miles offshore, the only place in the Constitution it sets a boundary. The state constitution continue subject to, so all the boundaries set in there don't exist. They do not exist. They cannot be applied. They're in there, can't be removed, but they can't be applied. Why? Because the Constitution says so. 106. 107, 108 and 109 creates the state subject to this Constitution, where they draw their authority referentially from this Constitution. How do we know that? Because we had a donkey named McGinty who took the issue to the High Court, and they come back and said the states did not exist before Federation. There goes Glew versus the Greenwich Shire. 3 quorums lied. They lied. And the document shows that. I've got it. All the transcripts I've got. I got it to prove you people are a bunch of liars. Every political party, I don't care if it's Rod. I know Rod. He's a reasonable enough guy, but he cannot get his head around the fact if he goes into Parliament as a political party, he's guilty of treason. Otherwise, show me where it says you can have a political party without going through the system set up by the Constitution to be voted in. Can't do it. Not possible. And anybody who finances a political party is equally guilty as the idiots go to Parliament. Equally as guilty. You can't say it's anything else. You've got to stop lying to the people. Misinformation, disinformation, that's what you're putting out, Anne Toomey. Are you now guilty of that? You're lucky. None of the federal law is lawful. None of it. It's all lies and fraud. Hate speeches? Politicians are doing it all the time. Terrorism? The politicians did it. All the time they're pushing these vaccines, they did it. They're using an experimental vaccine out of the mouth of the then health minister, the world's greatest experimental vaccine, but to use it on the people is an act of terrorism, Commonwealth Criminal Code. Am I right? Yes, 100%. The problem is you clowns don't think the people have a brain. I'm not the single person screaming in the wilderness. I'm one of the 27 million people that are waking up that now can see by writing a simple letter, handing it to the person in charge of the electoral office, wherever you go, your voting station, give it to them and say, I can't vote, there is no lawful candidate here. And there's no lawful candidate. You can't speak it into being. That's why Kirby says no parliament by preamble or assertion can speak an authority into being when none exists in law. None exists in law. What you've done is tried to enslave the Australian people and can't figure. We've already figured it. And are you going to get your way, Roger Cook? No. If any fool votes you back in because you're Labor or because you represent the unions, I'll tell you now, if you do that, you're an idiot and you're a traitor to this country. The only way you can get rid of them is how I said. Do not get your name signed off on that book. Walk in there, hand them the letter saying I and your full name, male or female, have attended at this polling booth to vote, and there is not one lawful candidate selected by the governor according to Chapter 1 of the Constitution, so I can't vote. Your problem is you've prevented me from voting, so find yourself $20 for everybody who goes in there. You're the ones committing the offence, not us. Wake up. I'm not stupid. I didn't come down in the last shower. I'm only one of the 27 million that are the Commonwealth of Australia. We are the Commonwealth. Everybody we employ are officers of the Commonwealth. But they must be officers of the Crown to come to that. The High Court said we don't have, the State Parliament is not officers of the Commonwealth. Of course they're not, because they haven't sworn the oath of allegiance. 42 of the Commonwealth Constitution is very clear. It says every senator and every member of the House of Representatives, before taking your seat, must swear the oath contained in the Constitution. Why don't you do it? Oh, I swear on the Quran, swear the Buddha, swear the Father Christmas or the Easter Bunny. I don't care. Swear on that, but swear on the oath to the Crown first. And these religious freaks, an oath in British law is a covenant between you and God to follow our Constitution and our law. Don't like that? Too bad. You're wrong. I can show you where you're wrong. You want to know? You want to see what I've got? My doors are always open. What I'm telling you, I've got every document that proves what I've said. So everything that's going on in this country now is a lie and a fraud. You spent all your life paying your mortgage off, and at the end of it you own nothing. And now they're using masters of the court who can't sit in a judicial function to strike out your defence when you go against the bank and prove the bank's lying against you, or prove anything. They knock out your defence. So how's that lawful? It's not. Then they hear it on the papers, ex parte, without you there. Section 51, subsection 24 says no man can be held to a decision of a court given in his absence or without his ability to defend himself. So they're lying. It's another fraud on the court. It's time you people, Scotty Barr says it's available online free. Do a search for quick and annotated Commonwealth Constitution. It should come up, and depending on the links provided you should be able to download to PDF format. It's the same copy as Wayne and others have. Thank you, Scotty. Yes, that's a fact. It's on there. Do it. And if you can't get it off there, ring me. We've got it on PDF on our computer. And no, you can't hack my computer and wipe it out. It's on a thumb drive or on a big drive you can't get at. So have fun. Anyway, listen to what I said. Use that letter and knock these idiots out. 51% is all we need, and not one of them can go back to the Parliament. It's not a hung Parliament. They don't exist in law. If you can't vote for them, if there's no persons to vote for, and there isn't, understand, it does not exist in law. End of the story. They can't change that.